you want a good speech and you really only want it for 2 minutes, I need 6 weeks to write it.
It's November '64.
63.
63? Yeah, it was before the war ended. It was just for that battle.
Before.
And they have a 26-minute introductory film that we can watch, or anyone can watch. And they show that on the hour and a half hour. So every 30 minutes they show that. And then there's an 8.5-mile driving tour that we can take as well. Okay?
Imagine a river about 500 yards wide.
The Confederate commander, Joe Johnston, and put Robert E. Lee in his place.
At this point in the Civil War, Lee was in his mid-50s. He was the very picture of good health. He'd really never been ill, seriously ill, a day in his life. Jackson the gunner at his magnificent best.
Today, it was the largest surrender of an American army in the nation's history. His writing on the invasion in Maryland. Lee's retreat from South Mountain brings his army to the small town of Sharpsburg between the...
This was the signal for the Confederates to hold.
Slowly, the Union forces are gaining ground and advancing toward their main objective.
There was an appalling confusion of shattering sound, an unending chaos of violence and heat and intense combat, with fields and thickets wrapped in shifting layers of blinding smoke, so that no man could know and understand any more of what was happening than the part he could see immediately in front of him. Northerners and Southerners, wrestling back and forth in the cornfield. One tremendous free-for-all.
My rifle flamed and roared in the Federals' faces like a blinding blaze of lightning, accompanied by the quick and deadly thunderbolts. The effect was appalling. The entire front line, with few exceptions, was down in the consuming blast.
Burnside Bridge area.
I've never heard of it. Used to be, but
Well, I think if you're a pilot, you can't be a certain, can't be.
squadrons and shipping. So this is kind of a military reunion, right? All Navy squadrons or? Areas.
Franklin D. Roosevelt, Genesis Midway, and squadrons of Survey.
Awesome. I was on the Roosevelt, I was on the Midway. Just visiting, but I know they were real ships. A long time since the 42 was a service. Okay, we're gonna over to Annapolis, and we'll be there in about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll start our day. So let's get back up on the highway. I think that it's named after the very famous Queen Mary, who was the daughter of Henry VIII, but it is not true. It's the Henrietta Marie. So that's how Maryland got its name. You have to have cheap labor, or that translates into slaves. So Maryland had a very large slave population, just like Virginia and the Carolinas. Now, when the Civil War broke out, Maryland probably would have gone to the south because of its slave plantation and slave economy. President Lincoln couldn't allow that to happen because then he would have the entire South surrounding Washington, D.C., because Maryland surrounds Washington on the north. So he had the city of Baltimore occupied by the Union Army, and all of the politicians State House in America. That's still in use today. The oldest continuous use State House. And goes back to 1772, and that is the largest wooden dome in America. Chesapeake Bay is about 200 miles long. It averages 20 to 30 miles wide. And even though you can see land way over there, you can see a big ship over there, the big tanker or the boat carrier. But beyond that there is land, but that's not the other side of the bay. That happens to be an island in the middle of Chesapeake Bay. It's now a total care retirement home for a lot more people than one. We'll talk all about it when we get inside the academy. Many of the buildings here are for officer quarters, and also on the right side are buildings of the Navy. This is called St. John. It's been here since 1696. We all gather together to go into lunch, and they have a little ceremony and probably a band playing, and it's rather impressive. So I'd like to make sure we focus on that. That's at 12 o'clock, and so before then I need to squeeze in as much as I possibly can. The original building, they're attached inside, they're all inside. The governor's office, I'll show you the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office. They are the same offices that were used in 1772. And red and white crosses. The black and gold is the family crest of George Calvert and his family from England. It was way back to the 1200s. Everybody in England has a crest here. And one of the main paintings is almost identical.
I realized that, but I wondered if
No, we didn't. We didn't have to. The precedent was already set by George Washington. State. And it's going to be on display very soon and there's a replica right over there in that little table, a replica of the letter, and it's translated for you because it's very hard to read the writing. So there are 47 senators, and there are 3 representatives in each district, so there's 141 representatives. They meet right here. This is the 1905 edition, so this is the current chambers. Now, nail in the entire dome. It's all done with peg construction, and it's the original dome from 1785. And I forgot to bring it with me. I apologize. Y'all are familiar somewhat with the state quarters. Like California has John Muir on it, and Indiana has a race car, and New Jersey has
Beagle.
A refinery?
The Giants.
We
got the Giants on the
I think it
coin.
has the turnpike on it.
We got the Giants on the coin.
No, it doesn't have, that's the state of New Jersey, that's the outline of the state. Anyway, Maryland
take a
State
joke, can you,
Court
George?
has the word no. If you look at that state court, it's how important it is to the state. Connecticut, New York City, you can talk about Marin County in California. No, this is the most expensive area to live. And so, yes, this is a wonderful place to retire, but you need money to retire. And Maryland's taxes are not friendly to retirement, which is really sad because Delaware is, and Pennsylvania is, who wants to live in Pennsylvania in the winter? And so that's why a lot of people go south of Florida where it's more friendly in the winter. State tree and state flower, Mississippi, and this area is as far north as they grow. You will not see a magnolia tree in Pennsylvania, Ohio, or places like that. This right below you is a bell, very much was extinct in World War II. And it was an old style battleship, not an Missouri style. There's a statue of a native Marylander who was a lawyer, and then he became the Attorney General of the state, and then he became the Attorney General of the United States, and a Supreme Court Justice, and then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. His name was Roger Taney, T-A-N-E-Y. Shore. If you know anything about the geography of Maryland, you know that there's an eastern shore and a western shore. The bay's in the middle. And until 1950, when the bridge was built, you had to go by ferry boat over to the eastern shore. And the eastern shore was like a different country. They spoke different over there. They had their own world out there. It was isolated. And they circled the house. The original house goes back to 1710. And it's called the Borley Randall House. Mr. Borley built the house. Mr. Randall expanded it to 14 rooms, or expanded it when he owned it. And I think the reason is he had 14 children. And P.V. Weems, there's no chain restaurants. And this is a very fine restaurant. But the thing that's unusual here is involving ships. Back before airplanes were a big deal, when you want to go from the U.S. to Europe, you traveled on an ocean liner. And there were big passenger ships, and that was the way to travel. And you know the names of some of them. There was the Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mary, there was the Normandy, there was the Ile de France, and they went to the United States. It was called the United States. In fact, signs of the Zodiac. Those were in the main dining room on the Normandy. Well, we brought them here. Who knows how come Academy was built opened in 1845, and the main gate of the Naval Academy was at the end of the street. So post 1845, most of them were built in the 1850s. And so we're just going to walk down here. There's a really nice Irish restaurant, one of my favorites, antique stores and so forth. This is called the Chase Lloyd House over here. It's built by Samuel Chase, one of those 4 signers from Maryland. Samuel Chase was appointed to the original Supreme Court by George Washington. Right here in the main vestibule of the home, there's a Palladium staircase inside, like something from Gone with the Wind. And that's where Francis Scott Key got married. So that's 1769. This one on this side is 1774. It's called the 5-part Georgian architecture. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. The main house, the ends of the house would have things like stables or kitchens, and then there were two connector wings called hyphens. This is 1774. And that, and then we're going to go to the Noon Formation. The chapel's right over here. And then the Noon Formation is just beyond that gazebo there. About the same distance beyond to it is the same distance beyond it as where the Noon Formation is. Then the Bancroft Hall, the largest military academy at West Point, 1802. And then we have the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, the Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut, and the Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, New York. And to go to an academy, you have to go through a congressman, a senator or a congressman from the district you live in.
Ricochet.
Must be somebody important.
And every year, the worst thing you can be at the academy is a plebe. And by the way, they're called midshipmen here. You call them a cadet, you are insulting them. Because that means that they are from the military academy. And there's all kinds of things you have to go through in your first year, and you cannot wait to stop being a plebe. I still have memories of that. And so they have a tradition here, is that they put a Dixie cap hat on the top of this monument, which represents the plebe, and they have to replace it with an upper class hat. And after they do that, then they are no longer plebes. And that's done at the end of the year. And in the 1890s and early 1900s, the bandmaster was Charles Zimmerman. And he was unique. He wrote an original song for every one of the graduating classes. And the class of 1907, their song was one you might have heard of. It's called Anchors Aweigh. Iron benches down there, and the Noon Formation is going to take place till the 1970s. Now it is optional. They have both Catholic and Protestant services here on Sunday, and it is actually open to the public, and it's really worth coming here. They have wonderful ministers and academy choirs. The class of 57, class of 83. So much of the academy is based on donations, and those will be donations by the alumni of certain classes. Others are private donations, but you'll see that all over the place, including this window. I see one right here is donated by the class of 1926.
Are these all Tiffany windows?
Yeah, well, come with me, please.
Are they Tiffany windows?
Oh, you'll see them when I get up front.
Oh, yes, we do.
That is the first line of the Navy hymn. Now, if you look under Jesus' feet, there's a number 69, and that is because it was donated by the class of 1869. That is a Tiffany window over there, one on the top. You can see Tiffany glass. It has a look that no other glass has. And underneath is Admiral Farragut at the Battle of Mobile Bay. One of my favorite windows is the midshipman window right up there. You all see that? There's also a Tiffany window on this side, which is the Admiral Sampson window. It's been very commonly in Scandinavian churches they had a ship, because in Scandinavia, typically the men went to sea, sometimes for years at a time. And so there would always be special prayer. In the Caribbean, and as a young man, he was actually named John Paul. He was named John Paul. Well, he killed a man, so he changed his name to John Paul Jones. In Paris, in a city cemetery. Later, the cemetery became obscure, and they started building residential streets and houses over the top of the cemetery. So his grave was lost. When they built the chapel, Ernest Flagg was a great admirer of John Paul Jones. So they identified him. He was buried in a casket with straw and alcohol. Probably died with a smile on his face. I'm not sure. And they brought his body back, and they interred him in 1912 here at the chapel, at the crypt that had been prepared for him. It's amazing. So.
That takes some guts.
Yeah, that guy was amazing. They eat at tables that are for, I believe, 10 people, and they have mixtures of 4 classes. And the food comes out on platters. Guess who gets the food first? First classman, and the second class, third class. The plebes get what is left on the platter. Nobody eats badly here. And the plebes have to sit there at attention and eat this way. All year, it's hell being a plebe. When they go in, they do the moon formation and they march into the dining hall. At the other 2 meals, they don't march in. 120 16-pound turkeys at the same time and 3,000 hamburgers a minute.
That is fast food.
Some flipping, baby. I'd like to see the smoker.
Yeah, we're headed. You got it. It's called the ring dance. That is at the end of your junior year, which is the second class year, the third year here. And I hope you don't get puzzled when I say these numbers. And that's when they get their class ring. And each class has their own unique design on the ring. Some of the things are standard on every ring, but each class has some unique features on the ring that make it special for them. And I wish I would have brought my ring. The Academy rings are a monster. I have so much gold. It was solid gold, and it must be worth a fortune today. I think gold was like $30 an ounce back when I was getting my ring. But replica of the ring done in giant size, and it's formal. They dress formally. I'm talking from the guy's point of view. They bring their special girl, probably the one they're going to marry. By the way, you can never have been married if you're at the Academy. That's why there's so many weddings afterwards. and they approach the ring. There's a font of water that has literally water from all 7 seas that are brought in from ships. And they put the